Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. Most people in the military know they should contribute to their TSP, but very few people are ever taught how actually to use it. Now, they hear things like put in 5%, they hear get the match, they hear choose Lifecycle Fund, they hear, don't even touch it all. And all of that may be useful, but it is not the full strategy. Because the smartest way to use your TSP is not just to save money. The smartest way to use your TSP is to build a retirement income machine that works alongside every other benefit you're earning. Your pension, your compensation, your Social Security, your civilian retirement, your real estate, your emergency fund, your survivor plan, your tax strategy. Your TSP is not supposed to just sit off by itself like some random account you forgot about. It's supposed to have a job. And if you don't give your TSP a job, somebody else will give it for you. Usually fear, usually confusion, usually whatever fund you happen to be placed into. Usually whatever somebody in the unit told you. And that is how people serve 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, and still don't understand what their own retirement money is actually doing. So today I want to explain the TSP in a way that most people never explain it. Not as a product, not as a government account, not as a random investment, but as a military wealth tool. And once you see it that way, you will never look at your TSP the same ever again. Now, let me say this clearly. This is not financial advice. This is just education for educational purposes only. You have to look at your own situation, your own income, your own taxes, your own family situation, your own retirement plan, and your own risk tolerance. But I want to give you some structure right now, folks, because structure is what most people are missing. The first thing you need to understand is this. All right? Let me get my thoughts together. The TSP is not your whole retirement plan. It's one piece of your retirement plan. That sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because if you're in the military, especially if you stay long enough to earn retirement, you may have income streams that civilians just don't have. What do I mean? You have your military retired pay. You may have VA disability compensation. You may have Social Security later. You may have a civilian job after service. You may have FERS pension if you go federal. You may have spouse's retirement. You may have rental income. The question is not simply how much money can I just, throw at my TSP. The better question, folks, is to ask what role should the TSP play in your larger retirement system? That is where wisdom begins, because if your pension covers your basic living expenses, your TSP may become your growth engine. Your pension does not have to cover your basic living expenses. Your TSP may become your bridge. If you leave the military before retirement, your TSP may become one of your most important long-term wealth assets. If you are under the blended retirement system, the TSP becomes even more important because the match is just part of the design. And if you get, the government matching contributions you generally need to contribute at least 5%, but check it may change, of basic pay each pay period to receive the full match. Now, this is the first commandment of TSP from the book of the Adjutant. Do not leave the match on the table, folks, because the match is not magic. It's not a bonus. It's not compensation. It is part of the value of your service. And if you do not structure your contributions correctly, you can lose the sum of that value. Now, here's something that many people miss. You don't just want to max your TSP, folks. You don't want to do that. You want to max it intelligently. The TSP specifically warns that if FERS or the Blended Retirement System or BRS, you got all these acronyms, participants hit the annual elective deferral limit before the final pay date of the year, their contributions stop. And they can miss matching contributions for the rest of the year. Now, this is a big deal because some people get aggressive early in the year. They front load contributions. They think, I'm doing great, I'm maxing out. But if they hit the limit too early and stop contributing before the last paycheck, they may stop getting the match. So the smarter move for many blended retirement folks or the first folks as participants is not just to max the TSP, it is to spread the contributions out across the year so that you can continue to get the match. Hint, hint, clue, clue. Now, this is strategy. That is the difference between enthusiasm and structure. Now, the second thing that nobody explains well is this. Listen up. Your TSP contribution rate should match your season of life. For example, you have a young service member with no dependents, low expenses, and time on their side should probably think very differently from a service member with 4 kids, consumer debt, and no emergency fund. God bless you for all you all out there in that situation. A person with 18 months left before retirement should think dramatically different from a 23-year-old private or lieutenant. A person preparing to buy a house should think differently from somebody who already has a strong cash reserve. So I do not like this whole one-size-fits-all TSP advice that some of these folks out here in YouTube land and around the world say, because one-size-fits-all advice is how people get discouraged. Somebody says you need to contribute 20%. Well, maybe. But if you have high interest debt, no savings, and your car is just, a prayer and away from a disaster, then putting 20% into your TSP while your household is financially fragile may not be wisdom. That may be imbalance, quite frankly. At the same time, if you are spending money loosey-goosey, living haphazardly, buying cars you cannot afford, eating out consistently, and saying you cannot contribute 5%, then it is not a TSP problem. That, folks, is a discipline problem. So here's the clear framework. First, you want to get the match if you're eligible. All right. Second, you want to build a basic emergency fund. All right. Third, you want to attack destructive debt. Fourth, you want to increase your TSP contributions as your pay increases. Fifth, you want to keep your lifestyle from rising as fast as your income. That, folks, is how military wealth is built. Not by one big heroic decision, but by small decisions repeated over time. Okay? Now, let's talk about the Roth versus traditional. This is where people kind of get lost in the sauce, folks. Traditional TSP means you may get a tax break now, but you generally pay taxes later when you withdraw. Now, watch this. The Roth TSP, or Thrift Savings Plan, means you pay taxes now, but qualified withdrawals later may be tax-free. That decision matters, but it is not always as simple as Roth is better, traditional is better. If you are in a lower tax bracket now, Roth may be attractive. If you're in a high tax bracket now and expect lower taxable income later, traditional may be attractive. If you expect to have a military pension, FERS pension, Social Security, rental income, other taxable income later, you're blessed. Roth may help create tax flexibility. The key word, folks, is flexibility. Now, you don't want to arrive in retirement with every dollar taxed the same way. That is why a mix can be powerful. Some traditional, some Roth, some cash, some pension, some tax-free VA compensation, if applicable. That is how you create options. And options matter in retirement. Now there's also a newer development people need to understand. Beginning in 2026, TSP participants are now eligible for spousal beneficiaries can convert money from traditional TSP balances to Roth inside the TSP, and the TSP notes that converting pre-tax money generally increases taxable income for that year. Now, that does not mean everyone should do it. It means the planning conversation is getting more important because Roth conversations, or conversions, I should say, can be useful, but they can also create tax consequences. So do not treat a Roth conversion like some sort of casual button click. All right. This is something to plan for carefully. All right. So now let's talk about the funds. The TSP is beautifully simple. I love it. It's beautiful. This is one of the greatest strengths. You don't have to pick from 10,000 funds. No, you don't have to do that, because picking from all those funds is, you definitely can get distracted and lose track of everything. They're just, you have core funds to choose from. You have the G fund, you have the F fund, you also have the C fund, the S fund. Those are the core funds that are made up. So again, you have the G fund, the F fund, the C fund are very important funds that make it up. And you also have the I fund. And of course, you have the lifestyle funds. Now, the mistake people make is that they either become too fearful or too clever. All right. Some people sit too heavily in the G fund for decades because they're afraid of loss. I knew a young lady who was serving in the federal service for decades, and all of her money was in the G fund. She got guaranteed money, so to speak, but I can only imagine the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars she left out on the table. All right, the G fund has a purpose. Stability has a purpose, but if you're young and decades away from needing the money, being too conservative for too long can create a different kind of risk. No, not a market risk, I should say, but purchasing power risk. The risk that your money does not growing enough to support the life you want later. On the other side, some people keep jumping around. They hear the market is down, boom, they move. They hear the market is up, boom, they move. They try to time everything. That usually turns the TSP into a casino with government branding. So all of y'all like to go to Las Vegas, that's pretty much the same thing. That is emotion with a login password. Now, the smarter way is to pick an allocation that fits your time horizon, your risk tolerance, then stop treating every market headline like an emergency. And if you do not know how to build your own allocation, Lifecycle Funds can be useful because they are designed around a target horizon. But even then, folks, you need to understand what you own. Do not just choose something because it sounds right. Choose it because it makes the job you need the money to do. Now, here is the phrase I want you to remember, all right? I want you to remember this phrase. Write it down. Got your pens and paper, folks. Everybody got your pen and paper out? Got it? You ready? All right. Every dollar needs a mission. Some dollars need protection dollars. That is your emergency fund. Some dollars are opportunity dollars. That may be cash for a move, a house, a school, or business. Some dollars are growth dollars. That is where the TSP often shines. And some dollars are income dollars. That may be pensions, Social Security, annuity income, or withdrawals later. The mistake is forcing every dollar in the same job. Your emergency fund should not be trying to grow like the C fund. Your TSP should not be used like a checking account, all right? Or a slush fund, as I like to say. Your pension should not be your only plan. Your VA compensation, if you receive it. And I'll use this as a footnote. If you injured yourself in the service, make sure you keep track of all that stuff. All right? It should not become an excuse to avoid building assets. Every dollar needs a mission. Now, for the younger service members, here's the strategy. All right? Start early. Get the match if you're eligible. Increase your contribution every time you get promoted. Increase it when you get a raise. Increase it when a debt is paid. All right? You also want to increase it when a car payment disappears. Do not wait until you feel ready. You may never feel ready. The earlier dollars are powerful because they have more time. A 24-year-old who contributes consistently may not feel rich today, but that person is quietly building future freedom. And the beautiful thing is this, folks, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent. Now, for mid-career service members, the strategy changes, all right? Mid-career, you need to stop guessing. You should know your contribution percentage. You should know your balance. You should know your fund allocation. You should know whether you're Roth or traditional or both. You should know whether you're on track to retire from the military. You should know what your household debts look like. You should know whether your spouse has retirement savings. You should know what your next transition may require, because mid-career is where people either build momentum or just normalize chaos. This is where the military lifestyle can fool you, because you have a stable paycheck, you have BAH, you have TRICARE, commissary, you have all of those things, and that can, make you feel stable. You also have your housing allowance, regular promotions, and because the system is stable, you can start thinking you are stable, but the system may be stable while your personal finances are not. That is why the TSP matters. It forces you to build something that belongs to your future. Now, for senior service members, oh my gosh. Well, it's never too late to follow your dream. All right. For the senior service members, especially those approaching retirement, the strategy changes again. Now, at that point, you need to think about income planning, not just accumulation. You need to ask, when will I need this money? How much risk can I take? What income will I already have? Will I work after retirement? Will I have VA compensation? Will I have a civilian pension later? Do I need a bridge between military retirement and Social Security? Do I need to protect my spouse? You also need to, do I want to leave money to children? Do I have a tax plan? Because once you get closer to retirement, the TSP is no longer just about growth. It's about timing. It's about sequencing. It's about tax control. It's about not selling in panic. It is about not taking withdrawals without understanding the long-term effect. That is why the smartest TSP strategy is not just put money in, it is know what the money is for. Now, let me give you the simple TSP command structure. All right. Number 1, contribute enough to get the full match if you are eligible. Number 2, do not hit the annual limit too early if that causes you to lose matching contributions later. Number 3, choose Roth, traditional, or a mix based on tax planning, not slogans. Number 4, invest according to time horizon, not fear. And number 5, increase contributions as your income rises. Number 6, do not raid your TSP for lifestyle emergencies that could have been handled with better cash planning. It is not your slush fund, people. Remember that. The Adjutant has said your TSP is not your slush fund. Number 7, before retirement, decide what role the TSP will play in your income growth, bridge, tax flexibility, legacy, supplemental income, or all of the above. That is the structure. And I want to speak directly to the young soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Guardian, Coast Guardsman who thinks this does not matter yet. It matters more than you think, because time is one of the advantages you cannot get back. You can recover from a bad purchase. You can recover from a bad car loan. You can recover from a financial mistake, but you cannot go back and become 22 again. You cannot go back and give your money 30 extra years to grow. So start where you are, even if it is small, even if it feels unimpressive, because the goal is not to impress people today. The goal is to protect your future self. Now, I want to speak to the senior NCOs and officers out there, out in YouTube land, wherever you're watching this. Who's been serving for a long time, but has not taken TSP seriously. Do not let shame keep you from structure. If you are behind, just say it plainly. Then build from there. Increase your contributions, clean up your debt, understand your pension, understand your VA benefits, hint, hint, clue, clue, understand your survivor benefits, understand your tax picture, and stop avoiding the numbers. Avoidance is expensive. Clarity is powerful. And for those already close to retirement, do not assume the TSP will automatically solve everything. All right? The TSP is a tool. It is strong, a simple tool, a disciplined tool, but it still needs a plan. Because retirement is not just about having money. It's about knowing which money to use, when to use it, how it is taxed, and what needs to be protected. That is the part nobody explains. The TSP is not just about becoming wealthy. It's about becoming less dependent on emergencies, employers, politics, family pressure, and fear. It's about giving your older self choices. And that is what military financial strategy is really about. Choices. The choice to retire with dignity. The choice to leave the service without panic. The choice to help your family without destroying yourself. The choice to work because you want to, not because you have to. The choice to sleep better at night because your future has structure. This is the smartest way to use your TSP. Not as a random account, not as a checkbox, not as a slush fund, not as something you look at once a year, but as a disciplined part of your military wealth. And if you remember nothing else, remember this. Your TSP is not the plan. Your TSP is part of the plan. And when you give it the right job, contribute with discipline, invest with patience, and connect it to your larger retirement picture, that is when it becomes powerful. And so there you have it. I hope this has been helpful. For the next video, I recommend you watch my Military Wealth Masterclass playlist because that will help you understand how pay, benefits, retirement, and long-term planning all fit together. This is the Adjutant, and I'll see you in the next one. I wish you all blessings and blessings. Shalom.